Everyone, I thought I'd make another video for Jurassic World Alive because, to be honest, I'm actually really enjoying this new update. It's definitely better than the previous 1.8 version, from my opinion, as in like the state of the meta at least. And yeah, and I just think it's a lot more interesting with many more viable options. So this is going to be a bit different from my previous battle videos, as I'm not going to be showing gameplay footage, but I'd rather be giving my personal thoughts and opinions on the current best dinosaurs in the game. Before we really begin, I wanted to say that this was essentially a collaboration effort with the other mods on Post1's Discord server. Posty's thoughts and explanations will probably differ slightly from mine, but as this is the first part of the S tier that I personally found to be most accurate, but I was definitely heavily influenced by other people's thoughts and opinions and what they what they pointed out to me, and things I hadn't considered. So thanks a lot, guys, especially like Temerity, Yusha, Postamon himself, obviously, and stuff. So yeah, let's just get into this. Yeah, so starting at number one is arguably the dino that got the biggest buff of all this update, Ardentismaxima. Like you can see, it's got an HP buff, a slight one at that, but definitely relevant. It's got an attack buff, a very big one, going from like a slightly over 1,000 to 1,300. Didn't change in speed, but doesn't matter since it's basically always going to be faster anyway. It gained 15% armor, which is huge. This makes it tankier than Gemini Titan against any dino that can't armor pierce. So essentially, most dinos that Ardentismaxima is designed to go up against in the first place, although we'll get to that later. And it even inherited Brachiosaurus's critical hit rate with 30% now. Its crits aren't as influential as they once were due to their nerf last update, but a good nerf in my opinion, since battles are less decided on giant amounts of RNG, but definitely 30% chance to deal 1.25 times extra damage is highly appreciated. And it can cheese through some matchups that it might not have been able to do before, just because of that giant crit rate. So let's go over its moveset. Decelerating Strike. We don't use this move. It's not necessary at all. All you need are to be honest, like all you need are Decelerating Impact and Definite Rampage, but there are definitely circumstances where Instant Invincibility can come in very handy as well. But yeah, let's have a look at it more as a whole rather than just like looking over the moves itself. It used to be a specialized build dedicated to taking down speedsters like Erlikospyx, Erlikospyx, Magna, dinos like that, like high-speed dinos. But now in 1.9, in addition to obviously still taking out all of those, it has a positive matchup, surprisingly, against the chompers, like Thorantonontorex, since its damage output over 2 turns totals 4,550, which is greater than either of their HP. In addition to that, you can just, like as mentioned before, it can just keep chaining its impact and rampage for just overall consistently high damage output, all the while outspeeding the opponent due to Ardentis not being able to be slowed and constantly inflicting slow on the opponent. That is, of course, unless the opponent is also immune to being slowed. That goes without saying. A clever use of instant invincibility can really come in clutch against opponents like Gemini Titan and Dioraja, and it's Ardentis' primary tool when it needs the extra damage output of 2 sequential definite rampages, such as when you're facing Smilonemus or Smilonemus, I don't know how to pronounce it, because due to that gigantic 50% armor it's got, the fact that it can throw up a shield, you want to use one decelerating impact, obviously, first to slow it down, but then it's barely going to do any damage because of that armor and a possible shield. So what you want is to just keep hitting it with definite rampages, and instant invincibility can protect you against a precise pounce while Smilonemus is still slowed down, and you can just throw out 2 definite rampages by incorporating that into your move cycle to take it out. So another interesting matchup that Ardentismaxima has, unlike Gemini Titan, is the fact that it has a positive matchup against Thylacutator, which is one of the new epic hybrids, and technically a dino specialized in dealing insane amounts of damage to high HP dinos like the sauropods. Like, this isn't to say that Ardentismaxima will always beat Thylacutator, since Thylacutator isn't really a head-to-head dino. Like, you'll kill something and then have a rending takedown up, and then Ardentismaxima might trot in, and then it will still eat a rending takedown. But this is getting besides the point. In a head-to-head matchup, Ardentismaxima can take Thylo out without suffering any damage whatsoever if Thylo doesn't dodge the D-cell impact. Like, if the Thylo, for example, isn't speed boosted, and your Ardentismaxima is speed boosted, and it's faster than the Thylacutator, then your Ardentismaxima wins 100% of the time without taking damage. Because since Definite Prowl isn't a priority move, and D-cell impact will hit it, and then it obviously can't dodge the Definite Rampage. And since Thylacutator has 4,500 HP, as just like with the Chompers, Ardentismaxima's damage output totals over that amount, and it will be able to take Thylo out without suffering a single hit. Yeah. So just basically this combination of ludicrous stats, super good moves, and amazing ability make Ardentismaxima, like, honestly, in my opinion, the undisputed king of the meta, top dog, the best dino in the game, the one to go for. Like, try and have this guy on your team if possible. So moving on, we have Gemini Titan. And so, just to clear up, while I personally consider Ardentis to be the top dog in the meta, like, Gemini Titan it's right behind there, nipping at its heels, and in a myriad of circumstances, it actually does perform better than Ardentis, just depending on what circumstances you're in. Higher base stats all around mean that Gemini Titan, as in, obviously, like, it's got higher health, attack, and speed. It doesn't have armor, and it has a lower crit. That has to be said. But these higher, like, base stats that it has mean that it hits both harder and faster turn 1, allowing it to perform more revenge kills. However, due to the fact that it doesn't have the ability to chain an impact in a rampage, despite its higher attack, Ardentis does have an overall higher damage output than Gemini Titan. But the fact is, Gemini Titan at that 110 base speed, it does outspeed the crowded 108 to 109 speed tier, where you've got Trico, you've got Diuraja, you've got Tenonto, Thor, you've got Dracoceratops. It's super crowded, all super meta-relevant dinos, and Gemini outspeeds them all. And if they're damaged, if they've even got just like a little bit of damage, he can take them out with a D-cell rampage turn 1, which is really powerful. It lost the ability to one-shot Dracoceratops because it lost 100 attack, but it more than makes up for that in immunity. Like, it's unquestionable that Gemini Titan got a buff this patch, despite losing some base stats. Long protection. Long protection gives it the ability to be, honestly, like an impenetrable wall against anything that can't remove it. And Nullifying Strike gives it the ability to remove buffs and shields at any point, which is particularly relevant considering that Gemini Titan will, unless the opponent is immune to deceleration, it will always be the fastest dino in the field, obviously assuming that you've already used Decelerating Rampage, since we're talking about using Nullifying Strike. It's also, if it manages to avoid being crit by Ardentismaxima and avoiding to land a Decelerating Rampage on the turn that Ardentis uses instant invincibility, it's actually one of the few dinos that can manage to take it out 1v1. Very few dinos can boast that. Like, the matchup between these two sauropods comes down to the prediction of D-Cell Rampage against instant invincibility, and whether Thingybob Ardentismaxima gets a crit, which admittedly it has a really high chance to. But a negative to Gemini Titan is like it's really hard to actually find a negative to Gemini Titan, but due to its higher HP, which admittedly comes in useful a lot of the time, since most of the meta does have armor or shield breaking capabilities, which would nullify Ardentis's bulk boost afforded to it by armor. The HP buff, the higher HP it has at 6,000 can be detrimental to it when facing rending attackers, particularly rending counter attackers, since it obviously will be taking more damage from them, since those attacks are HP based, just like bleed, which Gemini Titan is now immune to. One of the best ways to beat Gemini Titan before bleed is now utterly useless against it. So I'm not really sure what Ludia was thinking, but okay. Yeah, Gemini Titan is now immune. So these two dinos that we've just talked about, no pun intended. Well, actually, no, that's a straight up lie. This is an intended pun. Quite literally stand head and shoulders far above the rest of the meta, and will almost always need a combination of dinos to take them out. Like Trico does well against them. They do well against each other depending on circumstances. But other than that, like, you're going to need more than one dino to take out these two sauropods. Like, they're so powerful. Their base stats, their move pools, their immunity, they're the unquestionable kings of the 1.9 meta. So, moving on, we have Indoraptor Gen 2, which is a refined version of Fallen Kingdom's iconic antagonist. So it's not the best, it's not better than the sauropods, but it is my favorite dinosaur in the game, and here's why. It's an absolute matchup king. So Indoraptor Gen 2 is able to go toe-to-toe with almost any other dino and come out on top. Similar to the sauropods, but it does it with at a greater cost. Like, the sauropods are better than it simply due to their sheer stats, their ability, and like their ability to take on multiple dinos. Like Indo Gen 2, you're going to be able to take on almost any other dino, but at a bit more of an HP cost than the sauropods. So here's how Indo does it. If your opponent is slower, you can debuff them with a Cautious Strike, and taking a potential 16.5% damage of their original attack if you manage to stack both Distract and Dodge. It's undeniably the best strike move in the game, Cautious Strike, as it's essentially 4 moves rolled into one. You've got Distraction, Evasive Strike, Minimal Speed Up Strike, and Cleansing Strike all in one move. Sounds balanced, right? Yeah, the move is so powerful that, honestly, like, it's my opinion that if you disconnect in the arena and the AI that takes over for you that only uses your basic strike move, it might just end up winning, just because spamming Cautious Strike against the opponent will be that effective, depending on what the opponent chooses to do, or can do, rather. Because there's not much that can be done against Cautious Strike. Like, the only dino like that it has no effect on is, I believe, immune dinos with the ability to either nullify or ignore cloak, or like ignore dodge. And the only one that really comes to my mind right now is Magna's nullifying impact. That's the only one that really like comes to my mind. But this move, yeah, that's the only real counter to Cautious Strike, I think. But it's not even a counter, since Indo Gen 2 beats Magna very handily, and I'll get into that in a sec, right now. So it's really easy to look at Cautious Strike and saying this is the move that defines Indo. All you need to do is spam Cautious Strike, but that's really not the case. Mutual Fury is so good, and I think people are kind of sleeping on its potential. To be honest, and I'll explain why. So Mutual Fury shares the cleansing and speed up properties of Cautious Strike, but as opposed to Cautious Strike, which is easily the safest move in the game, Mutual Fury is more of a high risk but huge reward move. But the thing is, though, that depending on how you use it, the odds of either huge high risk or huge reward can be heavily tweaked in favor of huge reward by proper application of the move. So if your opponent is faster than you and has an HP stat of 4,500 or lower at standard level, such as Proceratops, or, as I said before, Magnapirator, who, they do share the same base speed, but since Magna is a unique tier higher than Indo, it will always go first. And Indo can use that to its advantage, since Magna will hit it first, and only then will Indo apply the Mutual Fury boost to it. So it's not eating a boosted hit from these faster dinos. But since Mutual Fury speeds up, we get into why Mutual Fury is so powerful. So, if your opponent is faster than you and has an HP stat of 4,500 or lower at standard level, such as these two dinos mentioned, Mutual Fury is the move to go for. As you tank their first hit, speed up and increase your damage, outspeed the following turn, and then deliver a devastating definite rampage on the opponent that, for all intents and purposes, is completely unblockable, since it A, ignores evasion, B, breaks shields, and C, can't be Indoraptor can't be distracted, since that's a side ability that it gained. So you just see it this way: base attack stat of 1,500 times 2 definite rampage times 1.5 Mutual Fury, 1,500 times 3 4,500. How many dinos in the HP have 4,500 HP? Quite a lot. So this combo is so good that it doesn't even only have to be used against faster opponents. You can also use it against as a riskier option. You can use it against dinos that are still slower than Indoraptor Gen 2, but that don't hit particularly hard on turn 1. This for example, Triceratops, you're thinking Trico obviously hits super hard. It does hit hard, but it doesn't hit hard enough to take Indoraptor Gen 2 out despite being boosted. It's an attack boosted defense shattering strike from Trico does 2,520 damage, which Indo Gen 2 can quite comfortably soak up, since 3,900 HP. It's not frail. It's not super bulky by any means, but it's not frail. And it can even survive if that move crits. As I said before, it can soak that move up and then just simply proceed to remove all of Trico's HP in a single boosted definite rampage, since Trico has 4,500 HP. Keep in mind that also that if you're still sped up, which you will be since the speed boost from Mutual Fury lasts for 2 turns, you can Cautious Strike the next opponent, and then very likely live it due to the move's insane benefits. And then that combos into yet another definite rampage. And essentially, the proper application of Mutual Fury just snowballs your way to a win, depending on, obviously, the dinos that the opponent has. This doesn't really work against Ardentismaxima and Gemini Titan, just due to the fact that they're immune to the distraction of the distracting effect of Cautious Strike, and can nullify it, with Gemini's Nullifying Strike, and Ardentismaxima can ignore it with defense shattering, with definite rampage, right? Indo Gen 2 quite obviously isn't infallible. It's vulnerable to slowing moves, again, with the 2 immune sauropods. But also stuff such as Stegodeus, what other, like Dioraja, it does beat Dioraja, but it takes a lot of damage from it. Um, it does take quite a lot of damage since Dioraja has the precise shattering counter that'll always go through. It's got superiority strike, so it can go faster. It can be faster. It benefits then from the mutual fury boost that Indo gives it. Like it does fall to mutual fury and definite rampage, but it takes a lot of Indoraptor Gen 2's HP down with it. But to round it off, evasive stance. Don't bother going for this move. You're not going to need it 95% of the time. You're far better served with one of the previous three moves. Like the only time I think evasive stance could be worth it is if like you're slowed down. You know your slow is going to end next turn, and the opponent can't slow you again, and you're going to die to a hit that if you don't successfully dodge, evasive stance could potentially break you out of that situation. But yeah, the previous three moves are definitely Indo Gen 2's bread and butter. So now we're basically at the point where ranking the next dinos in order of effectiveness is going to get harder. The three that I've already talked about are quite clearly better than the rest of this list in my eyes, but people's opinions on this matter will differ enough that you can, for the most part, ignore the order the next dinos are presented in. That being said, the order I have them here is vaguely what I consider their ranking in the current meta. So we now have Triceratops, a veteran top 3 dino that has found its throne usurped by newcomers. It's still the king of outplay potential though, as 9-0 wants to face a Trico that correctly predicts the right move to use in each situation. The fact of the matter is though, that more and more dinos are becoming safe from Trico's tactics of distracting and shielding, as immunity and defense shattering, both often in combination with each other, such as like with Magna, with Ardentismaxima, etc., it's becoming more prevalent than ever before. Trico is also vulnerable to opposing distractors such as Erlikospyx and Dinosaur. And while this may seem like a little bit of doom and gloom for Trico, this list really isn't based off simply head-to-head matchups. Trico does have an entire team supporting it, and that's exactly where it shines. So these insane stats and half counter are put to great use against the majority of the meta using the feared 3-move combo that Trico is most well known for of distract, shield, distract, to shave away large portions of the opponent's HP at little cost to Trico itself, putting opposing dinos in kill range of your speedier sweepers or swap-in attackers such as Dracoceratops or Monostegotops. So basically, Trico takes the HP off from your opponent at little to no cost to itself that you can then capitalize on with your other dinosaurs. Even if Trico then happens to die or something and they do manage to take it out, you've done the damage necessary to secure your win just through its really safe 3-move combo. And of course, there's always the fact that if your opponent happens to mispredict, which is very possible, such as trying to be ballsy and swap an immune dino like Magna into an instant distraction, into a predicted instant distraction rather, or just in general, just like not going for the optimal move, the ever-present threat of a gigantic defense-shattering rampage tends to lead most opponents to play as safe and predictably as possible, giving you what could technically be described as like a psychological advantage in the matchup, since the risk of your opponent to make a big prediction or a big play is a lot riskier for them than for you when you've got your Trico out. And it has to also be said that I think people who, this is my opinion, try to classify Trico as either a chomper or a tank are wrong, because let's face it, it's both of them and even more. It's an excellent team player who might not happen to sweep an entire team on its own, but it will definitely safely open up gigantic holes for the rest of your team to take advantage of. And it's like, whenever I am playing in the arena and I happen to roll my Trico, I'm always content knowing that it's always going to perform, likely taking out at least 1.5 of the opponent's dinos over the course of the game. Like, that doesn't have to be just like one dino and half HP of another dino. It's just like, it could be like 50% of 3 dinos HP just taken out merely by Trico going for its 3-move combo, even without getting off a distracting rampage or something. If it does get off a distracting rampage, it'll probably be considerably more overall HP loss to your opponent. But yeah, rounding off the first part of the series, we have the latest unique that we were able to dart in Erlikospyx. And while I really wish it had the Spinosaur design and animation in game, like when they like shake their head as if they're trying to get water out of their ears, which is adorable, I think. We're definitely, and we're lacking a unique Spinosaurus style dino. It's undeniable that these giant chickens like Dalarochirus, rest in peace, Erlodominus and Erlikospyx have left their mark on the meta. Spix, I'm going to just call it Spix from now on, since Erlikospyx is too many syllables and I like to shorten names, is the definition of a Swiss Army knife, quite literally having a move for every single occasion. It has the best distracting move in the game, cutting your opponent's attack by 75%, which gives it a longevity that far exceeds its base HP. It's got the best bleeding move in the game, which can be used to rip gaping holes in the opposing team, either allowing your next dino to set up with ease, or, similar to Trico, putting something in range of a swap-in attacker or stunner, or in like Monostegotops' case, both, like, or even just like a simple normal swap-in stun user like Smilonemis or Edmontoguanodon, or I think Phorosora also has swap-in stun. Like, you don't need an additional strike if the opponent is bleeding and you manage to successfully swap and stun them, since that's probably just going to take them, like the bleed and the free turn you get from the stun is likely going to take the opponent out. Minimal speed up strike makes it the fastest dino in the field, and as a bonus now it can't ever be slowed down as of version 1.9, which tremendously increases its utility against non-immune tanks like Stegodeus and Dioraja, which it now does have a positive matchup against. Previously it didn't. Precise Rampage is obviously its nuking move that can be used every other turn. It can one-shot Dracoceratops, which makes it a fantastic revenge killer. And then, like, once you kill Dracoceratops, it'll have either a lethal wound for a tank or debilitating distraction for an offensive dino. So it's basically always going to be ready for whatever the opponent switches in next. It's also one of the best answers to Magna Pirator, as it's going to outspeed, deal 3000 HP damage with Precise Rampage, and then it's going to finish Magna off with a strike, due to Magna having 750 HP remaining, which is half of Erliko's, of Spix's base damage, which is 1500, meaning it can pull this off even if it suffers a distracting impact. Magna is only going to beat Erlikospyx 20% of the time, like if it manages to crit it. With it, no, it's not even going to manage to beat Erlikospyx 20% of the time if it's a head-to-head and it doesn't have Defense Shattering Rampage up. It only wins if it hits Erliko with a crit Rampage. Yeah, so... But it also has to be said, however, while Spix itself did get buffed this patch, the meta became more unfriendly to it. The advent of an increasing number of powerful and bulky immune creatures like the two sauropods I've already talked about, Procerathomimus, and even Ankylodon. Like Procerathomimus used to not have a positive matchup against Spix. Now, because of its HP buff, it does. It can just instant distraction and one-shot Spix with distracting rampage, and there's nothing Spix can do about it anymore. So yeah, like Ankylodon, like you're not going to see a lot of these. Let's be real, but it did get a damage buff. It did get an HP buff, I think, as well. and it totals 1,000. It totals exactly 3,000 damage over 2 turns now, which again is Spix's HP. So Ankylosecodon could be seeing more use now. It's unlikely to happen, but it's definitely a niche and viable option. But it's not just immune dinos that Spix is vulnerable to. There are like a bunch of new ones that can give it a really hard time, like Gen 2, like we've previously discussed with the cautious strike or like mutual fury into the definite rampage. We've got Erlikospyx, who previously had a 50-50 matchup against Spix. Now it's not always going to win because of that 300 HP buff, meaning that it's going to be able to tank even if it goes after Spix, it's going to be able to tank the precise rampage and take it out with its own rampage. And Monostegotops is also like not a fun matchup, since Dig In really, like, despite Spix being immune to slow, Dig In is a move that's almost tailor-made to give Spix a hard time. Monostego has a shield now. It's regenerating health, offsetting bleed damage, and healing the bleed, obviously. It's got the 30% armor that Spix just can't get through. It's got no armor-piercing moves. And Spix's low HP also obviously means that Dracoceratops is always going to be a dino to be cautious of as well. But again, Spix can return the favor by revenge killing Dracocera if the opponent decides to use it against another dino. However, all that being said, its ability to have a move for basically any occasion, as well as to deal a lot of damage to its counters due to not being able to being slowed down, like it can still get off that 4,500 damage over 2 turns, secures Spix as a like a vague top 5 spot in my personal tier list. All right, everyone. So those are the top 5 dinos in the meta, and that's going to be all from my end for now. If you've got any questions as to the matchups I mentioned, or if I got something wrong, which, to be honest, is more probable than possible, feel free to ask for any further explanation in the comment section down below, or to simply fact check me, which I'd be very happy to be fact checked on. I don't want to be like giving out false info and stuff. So yeah, this was the first of 3 parts examining the dinos in S tier, and if it's success, I'll obviously be doing like A+, A tier, A- tier and stuff. So if you enjoyed it and want to see the subsequent videos, feel free to subscribe. So like, cheers and see you next time.